say? Nobody doing it better. Y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles. Got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Sit Down Recap Show presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host who's on the ones and twos as always, Daniel Alameda. We got Zim joining us very, very shortly on the show. We're back from Florida. It feels good to be back. But before we jump in today's game, break it all down, do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. Turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. The Bengals went out there, beat the Cleveland Browns. A lot to take away from that game, but it wouldn't be a recap show if we didn't bring Zim in to get us started. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going?
So I got a question for you. Why in the hell do you have a dustpan in your hand right now?
Oh, just sweeping a couple of brownies up out of here. I don't know. I just, 2 games, gentleman sweep, got them up out of here. So I just finished sweeping them up. This is the leftover, the brownies in here. Let's get that back in the basement. So let's get back to Bengals football. Let's get back to what we do. How about that defense, Malik? How about that defense?
I saw people.
Against BTR. It doesn't count. It doesn't count when we don't get to select our quarterback, Malik. It doesn't count because we're only going to talk about the defense when they do something bad.
Yeah.
No, it's okay to say the defense cooked today. The defense didn't even give up any damn points. They gave them the 6 points. How about that?
Yeah, this is true. The defense, for me, the narrative, again, that's not being talked about here is the defense, they pitched a first half shutout. The offense was stagnant in the second half, and the defense still created timely turnovers with Jordan Battle, Geno Stone. How about that safety tandem coming together, man? There's a lot to take away from the game, man. I certainly have a lot of thoughts on it. Daniel, we want to get you in here to definitely start us off with the discussion because Zim and I are about to cook. I got a feeling, but so we'll let you start before we get on our tangent.
No, you're good. I'm excited for this. I think that this is, it's a change of pace from where we were 3 weeks ago. And I just found myself, and this is, I'm sure a lot of Bengals fans are just watching this and saying, hey, man, first off, you got the best damn quarterback in the NFL. That's like when we were watching this game, man, it's, there's so much that excites me about football and, the offseason talk and figuring out, okay, draft prospects and everything. But watching this dude play football, watching the connection between him and Jamar Chase, it just kind of brought me back to how unique, first off, that you have a quarterback and wide receiver tandem from the same exact college play together in the NFL. That's very rare. And that's a trend I feel like we're going to start to see more and more often. But these dudes are absurd, man. And Jamar Chase's stat line obviously wasn't the greatest before that final touchdown, but Joe Burrow was playing his ass off, and it was just the consistency of the offense it's kind of what we expected. And the bright spot, though, honestly, it wasn't the offense, it was the defense. And this is the story of the 2024 season is they make one bad play and then you hear the announcers right away talk about the defense, and nobody, very similar to what we were talking about before the Cowboys game, nobody talks about Zac Taylor. Nobody talks about the offense. It's all about the defense. So I really do agree with you guys. And I think that the theme of this show really should be giving praise to that defense. The young dudes stepped up, man. They stepped up. And not only the young dudes stepped up, but it was just an all-around performance from guys like Trey Hendrickson. We were talking about this. That dude needs to be brought back. He is the best player on this defense. You have to re-sign him, and you have to find a way to build on that. But just going back to even something that caught my attention.
Daniel, let me ask you a tough question.
Yeah.
If you were forced to pick T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson, if you were forced to, not saying that the Bengals are, if you were forced, who are you going with?
If I'm forced to, I think that it's a loaded question because of where Joe Burrow stands now with that. I would have to pick T. Higgins when it comes to everything that's surrounding. And that kind of leads me to the next point. Joe Burrow is the man. What he says goes. And the fact that he had that ringing endorsement of T. Higgins, that's all that they needed. And that brings me to what Joe Burrow said about Lou Anarumo. And I feel like that's something that, kind of got swept under the radar. When that dude speaks, everybody needs to listen. And it trust me, I've seen people, it's not glazing. It is just a fact of the organization. Like what Joe Burrow said about Lou Anarumo, he said, he's a friend of my family. He is, one of the best in the NFL. He gets the best out of guys. I feel like people aren't addressing that enough. That is the star quarterback of your team giving a ringing endorsement of your defense coordinator. For me personally, I didn't view that as coach speak. I didn't view that as he's just saying what he has to say. I view that as Joe Burrow was being genuine, and he wasn't asked to elaborate on Lou Anarumo. So I think that that's, kind of the theme of what we're seeing with this defense. Guys like Geno Stone starting to find his place and find his role. And I think that when you look at how the all around, the defense they stepped up, man. In the past 2 weeks, the amount of turnovers that they've gotten, man, I've just been impressed. And it gives you hope as a Bengals fan heading into next year, because at this point, if we're being honest, it kind of seems like, Zac Taylor, it seems like he's going to be here, right? It seems like Lou Anarumo likely is going to be here. You got 2 more games left, but the way that this is trending, the way that, Bill Belichick, boom, moves to North Carolina, the report comes out, Zac Taylor, the Bengals are still kind of sold on Zac Taylor. Now we have to really figure out, okay, who's the problem? And okay, can we win with these guys? So that's part of my takeaway.
Can I there's a couple of different things. The Lou Anarumo one, I think Malik would enjoy this one too. I'm not the only person to say this. You could go look. There are subscribe pages and people that know this. Yeah. After the Steelers game, there was a very important speech that Lou Anarumo gave after that, almost like bye-bye type thing. Most people understand this. They've seen this online and everything like that, that it was said that Mike Brown came down and said, no, we're going to hold off to the end of the season to make these decisions. Your point about about Joe Burrow saying the endorsements, I will say this. There's another little piece, because I do pay attention to the pressers. When he gives the details on Zac and Lou, a lot of those are about personality traits and how much he appreciates him, not necessarily saying, I need this person coming with me moving forward. I think that that's him making sure that the fans and other people don't throw him under the bus, because like you said, everybody listens to Joe. And when you don't listen to Joe, you look stupid. And every time I see somebody online, they'll be like, I still wouldn't sign T. Higgins. I'll be like, what did Joe say? You know more than the guy that – there's a guy that y'all talk about every single week. Oh, my God, he doesn't have any time to throw. So your opinion at home is more important than the guy that's got 300-pound men running at him every single Sunday. I'm going to go with the quarterback that's the best quarterback in the NFL in terms of, like, who I would trust. But I would caution you on the Lou and the Zac conversations, because a lot of it points to how he's treated, and a lot of it about them as people, not about them in the future like he did with T. Higgins. And that would be my only kind of pushback on that one.
No, for sure. And I think that's where this season for where it was, 3 weeks ago, this is right here. There's a chance you still got 2 big games. And these are the 2 games I think that can really turn it around, because, right, you beat the Cowboys, close game. You beat the Browns, beat the Titans. These are the 2 games to where, hey, you have to end this streak. And this is to the coaching staff, because I truly believe that they were at a point, they still are at a point where, hey, you are coaching for your job, right? And that's where when people discuss, oh, are they coaching for the future? I truly believe, at least, on the Lou Anarumo front, even, Zac Taylor, I hope that they feel like, hey, this season is a lost season at this point, right? We put ourselves in this position, so you have to do whatever it takes to win. And that's why I do think that these next 2 games, specifically, obviously this Broncos game is massive. And then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers game at the end of the season, where that's going to be a brutal game too, to where these guys, they need to be coaching for their jobs. And I think that the defense, like Sean said, we're doing victory laps. Nobody said we're doing victory laps. This isn't absolutely not. This is not the place that anybody wanted to be, but you have to take the small wins as they come. And you are on a 3-game win streak.
And not even not even trying to, I open up the show like F the Browns. Like I hate the Browns. Fuck the Browns, right? So like that's a whole nother thing. We who they fans in here, like F the Browns. So we're gonna do that. The other part is this. You talked about Geno Stone and different things. This goes hand in hand with if you want to see the Bengals do something even next season, you have to see the guys that are under contract. What are they looking like right now? I'm in an evaluation process, whether I get into the playoffs or not. So for you to say like, yeah, like, I don't, it's against the Browns. Like the Browns beat the Steelers like a couple of weeks ago. The Browns have had one of the best, secondaries in football for most of the last 2-3 years of football. And they're a tough, customer to throw on. I thought the offense today too, if you want to just look at let's just look at Zac Taylor. For the first 2 quarters, he looked dominant. The third quarter, I'm going to tell you, I thought the only thing that he messed up on was he got away from the run and he got away from Jamar Chase. Outside of that, it's a pretty good game because nobody's really thrown for like 400 or 500 on the Browns like that. Like, I mean, it probably has happened a couple times this season, but if you're going to look at every single situation and just say, oh, well, that was just a less than, you know what I mean? Like, part of what good teams do, and the Steelers have done this all season, is they make sure that if they're a bad team, they beat the hell out of them. Like they're the kings of it. And so if you're not capable of beating bad teams and beating them soundly, like I said, the Browns shouldn't even have 6 points. The Marco Wilson penalty gave them another down, and then also the other penalty that the Osai phantom bump, whatever. Like to not recognize that and just go with groupthink and say, well, the defense sucks. And we're not watching anything else. I've made my decision. That's not the way football works. The reason why we all have an opinion every single Sunday and have hope that your team might win on a Sunday, like any given Sunday, is because you have to evaluate week to week. Just because you blew up, say we were 14, 15, and 0. Yeah. And we came out here and we got our ass kicked by the Browns. You would be crashing out and saying, bro, this team did it. You wouldn't say, well, because we're 14 and 0, I don't care that we just got our ass kicked by the Browns. You would evaluate each week, each game, each play, each down. And that's the way I look at football.
Yeah, and one last thing I think from this game, something that does perk my ears up when it comes to the Zac Taylor conversation, in division, it does feel, and we talked about this on the show, Logan, has brought up multiple times, it does feel like Zac's feel for the game is different in certain games. In this game, for example, it's very similar to he has a preconceived notion of how the game is going to be played before the game kind of starts. And we saw that with, I forgot what game, it was the Baltimore Ravens game. Backs are up against the wall. We're going to go for it no matter what. This game, and obviously I'm nitpicking here, but it was 4th and 3. You obviously missed the field goal. Hindsight's 20/20, I understand. But those are instances where I feel like in different games, Zac would have definitely went for it. And that's where, if we want to talk about a gripe that I have with Zac, I feel like in division, just his approach to the game is really dependent on each specific team versus having the Cincinnati Bengals' own identity. But yeah.
So I appreciate both of y'all. Y'all both cooked here. I'll say this, exactly what I said a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to keep with that same sentiment. I am taking on a position as if like I'm a member of the front office. I am assessing this as a whole. I'm not going to let one game deter me one way or the other. I think what Sean Brennan and Sean, let me let Zim in on this. Sean is a diehard Chiefs fan, but he is one of the most loyal supporters of this show. So while a part of him wants to see the Bengals do okay because he likes the competitiveness of it, he really likes to see us struggle as well. So, Sean, I always appreciate you, brother. I missed you this past week. One thing I will say is, Bengals fans out there, don't let anyone tell you how you should celebrate. No, don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't be happy with a victory. You shouldn't be, excited, because losing sucks. Let's be honest. Losing sucks no matter which way you slice it. For me, And Sean, this is me talking directly to you, as well as people that might be wondering why it's a positive outlook. You try to find victories where you can. The Bengals have notoriously struggled against the Cleveland Browns during the Joe Burrow era, and they were able to sweep them this year. And this has been a less than stellar year. There has not been a lot for Bengals fans to write home about, but this has been the Bengals' DNA in their MO under Zac Taylor. They really do end the season a lot stronger than they start. And sometimes you ask yourself, what would happen? How would this look if they started the season off a lot stronger in those one-score games? There was an interesting stat. The Kansas City Chiefs are 11-0 this season in one-score games, while the Bengals are the complete opposite. It's been poor for them. And when I look at it, I say, this is a season that, regardless of the faces that may change, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the core here, T. Higgins, they're going to learn from, and they'll grow from, and they'll be better in the long run. It does suck to lose. But I want to talk a little bit more about the defense. There are a lot of people out there with different takes about Lou Anarumo. A lot of people out there with takes regarding what they should do with this coaching staff. One thing I want to ask y'all, what do you think the Bengals front office is genuinely going to do? We sit up on the show, or I sit up on the show, and I usually give my opinion. I am in a listening mode today. I want to hear in the comment section what you guys think the Bengals will do and what they should do, not with Zac Taylor, because I think we're all in agreement Zac Taylor's still going to be here. But what do you think they're going to do, and what do you think they should do with Lou Anarumo as defensive coordinator? I'm just very curious to hear what the mass majority thinks. Daniel, let's start with you. No, you know what, Zim? Let's start with you. Then we'll go to Daniel.
I think Lou. If you would have asked me that a week ago, I would have said he's gone. I just felt like it was time. I think them seeing him beat up, yes, on less than offenses, and simplify the game plan for everybody. And like I said, I don't care that it's against the Browns. Like, I watched the Browns score 40, 50 points the other day against the Broncos or something like 2 weeks ago. I watched the Browns today do nothing. Like, they should have had 0. If you don't think that matters, I kind of understand you're going against DTR. I understand that, but the Bengals don't get a chance to pick who they go against. And I thought I made an argument, and it's not a hot take. It's actually probably I'm in the minority. There's an argument that the defense has helped out a lot more than what people think. I don't want to take the time out to go through all the games, but week 1, they gave the offense an opportunity to win the game. 16-10, gave the ball to offense with 1:36 seconds. Week 2, they gave Pat Mahomes the worst game that he's had in his NFL career. Giants game, the defense carried the whole entire game. The offense did nothing outside of the Joe Burrow run. The first time that we played the Browns, the Bengals offense only threw for 180. The Bengals defense carried in that game. In the Panthers game, big 4th down stop. Also, the fake punt made a play on that game. They did that. Like, I could go through all the games. Like, both Ravens games. Derrick Henry under 40 yards in 4 quarters of play rushing the football. Up 21-7, and the Bengals offense fumbles on that side of the ball. The Bengals defense isn't good to me, but this groupthink project where everybody's just like, blame the defense. I don't think that's fair because you're not looking at it from a week-to-week assessment. Sure, if you look at the cumulative efforts of the defense, I'm pretty sure it's probably ranked, 26 now or something like that. They're not good. But I think a lot of that has to do with the front office. And I think the cards that were dealt to Lou Anarumo. We know Lou Anarumo has done enough to knock off, Andy Reid's of the world and Bills when they're the Super Bowl favorites and stuff. So it's not a matter of can he do it. I just thought the personnel choices and the different things that they've done just weren't sufficient. If they moved on from Lou and they came with a different approach with like a Robert Saleh and he was like super energetic, and then you go and draft all these young defensive guys, and I think I'm more in favor of that. there is a world where if you give Lou some dogs, like give him an all-pro, give him like some players. Give me a Javon Holland, give me a Mufanga, give me a Milton Williams in free agency. Give me like some real players. I will argue there are guys making plays now, but if you look at even in our division, I don't think the Browns would take anybody on our team outside of like Trey Hendrickson on defense. Like the players, like, yeah, I like Battle, I like Miles Murphy, but these guys aren't starting level caliber on a lot of the teams in our division. And it took me a while to understand that. Like, I think that Chris Jenkins is going to be good. I think McKinley, these are all like hope. You know what I mean? And we're going up against Denzel Wards of the world, Grant Delpix that just had the best season of his career, JOKs of the world. These are like, and that's a bad team. You know what I mean? So to me, I could see the argument both ways. And had they got their ass kicked by the Browns, I think I'd be like, yep, he's out of here. But every single week, now that the team is now getting more on page of what he wants to do, and you're healthy up front now. Remember, you started off the season with the 5 defensive linemen hurt. You don't have Sheldon Rankins, who was your number 1 free agent signing, who did absolutely nothing. But I think that's starting to come together. I still not sold on Geno Stone and the run support tackle and stuff, but that's my own thing. I just don't think he has the horses, bro. Like, I really don't. And it's hard to just say, get Lou out of it. Like, it's hard for me to say that when I've seen him at the highest level perform. Yeah.
Daniel, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that as well. And I want everyone to continue to put your comments in the comment section. Before Daniel gives his take on it, I see the conversation has shifted to Frank Pollock in ways, and people are saying, fire Frank Pollock. You know, how much credit, you know, because Frank Pollock is the offensive line coach, but also the run game coordinator. How much credit do you give Frank Pollock for the season Chase Brown has had? That's one of the big questions I have, because it can't be one or the other, right? Frank Pollock has gotten the best out of the run game, as we've seen the last couple of weeks, once they've gone to, you know, Chase Brown fully, ever since Zach Moss's neck injury. So, and when you look at it too, there's a correlation behind Joe Burrow having the season that he's having. There's a correlation behind him having 7 straight games or something like that with 3 passing touchdowns. There's a correlation of that, right? I don't know if I'm a part of the fire Frank Pollock crowd. I don't know if I'm there. I think that a lot of these coaches, he's also dealing with an arm behind his back, because the pieces that the front office will give you are pieces, but it might not be the pieces you want. Frank Pollock will never have an elite guard. He will never have an elite guard that the Bengals go out there and pick up in free agency. He'll never have that. If he gets an elite guard play, it'll be because the Bengals drafted, right? It'll be because the Bengals drafted. I don't know. It's a double-edged sword, but I'm in evaluation mode, which is why you guys see me. I'm at a point where I'm listening. I really want to hear who knows ball and who talks ball versus like who actually pays attention to what's going on.
Versus emotions.
Yes.
You know, because me and you, we get characterized as that, because when we do have our research down and we've done the homework, then we have a strong voice. Then they try to characterize us as something that we're not. I don't just, you know, you and me, we both don't come out here and just start spewing off emotional things. I'm going off of the year assessment. When we first started this recap show, it's all based off of our assessment, based off of cited information and sources, just like when you go to school. And then you come back with the information based off the analysis, and then we come out. A lot of people will see something and immediately be like, fire that guy, get him out of there. I'm not that guy. Like, this isn't the show for, I'm not that guy. Because I understand what it takes. Once you do make a move like that, what's the replacement like? What is he battle tested? Do you have examples of this guy doing what Lou Anarumo has done against the best of the best? and that's
Right.
Pat Mahomes. I just saw it in week 2. We don't got to go with it. Jim, that was in 2020. No, we don't got to go there. We can go to week 2. Google it right now as we're on the show. Week 2, with a banged up defensive line, he gave Pat Mahomes his worst statistical game of his entire career in week 2 of this season with the defense that everybody's telling me is the worst thing they've ever seen.
Yep.
So when I say something like that, I know that that's not a group thing, but there's research and there's things. You could Google this right now. That's not a lie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we're giving you information that you can too form your assessment, because there is no right or wrong. There is a world where I think they could go get a new D coordinator and cook. Yeah. I would go get a energetic dude running the sidelines, sign T. Higgins, and use all of my resources towards the defense. That's what I would do.
And so for me,
and lost on 4th and 16.
Someone just said
a bum call, Sean.
Someone said I take Dennis Allen over Lou. Before you say that, one thing I would say is go look at Dennis Allen's defense's rankings with the Saints. I did a deep dive. I have a video coming out. I did a deep dive of potential defensive coordinator candidates and all this kind of stuff like that. His defenses have not performed that great at all. So, when we say that, it's even more alarming when you're considering the talent that has been invested from the Saints on the defensive line. From Cam Jordan, they had Trey Hendrickson, they had Von Bell, right? They had Marshawn Lattimore, and a lot of guys regressed under Dennis Allen. So, and that was when he was the defensive coordinator, not the head coach I'm talking about. So, I don't believe Dennis Allen is, what people might think he is. Again, I think it's very difficult to have these top tier elite defenses in the league that you have nowadays, but NFL has sort of become this bend but don't break style of football. It's about which, if the Bengals invested so much money into the defensive line, well, they probably wouldn't have as elite of an offense as they have, right? It's going to look like what it looks like. Where you invest the most money, that's probably where you're going to see the best of results. The Bengals offense ranks up there with the best in the league, right? But the defense, not there. When you look at how much the Bengals have spent defensively, I think they're third to last in the league and spent money on defense. So, I think there's a reason as to why it sort of looked this way. But, Daniel, I want to hear your thoughts on the Lou Anarumo conversation. What would you do? And what do you think the Bengals, what do you think they will do?
Yeah, I think my conversation with this really is, it's about the talent. And there's 2 parts, right? The Lou Anarumo, where I would, what's holding me back and where I'm really looking to say, okay, if I have to make a case for him not being here, is saying, hey, why have, these young guys not developed? That's the only thing that I could really say, okay, well, the Miles Murphy of the world, the Dax Hills, for the guys, albeit not superstar investments, there's been a decent amount of young guys that have been brought into the scheme, and there's nobody that's really taken off, right? So that's my thing of, okay, that would be my one criticism. But Zim, I thought you brought up a great point. Let's go look at the defenses in the AFC North. I think it's very simple. Look at a defense with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was watching that game. Obviously.
Stop for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Durkins 716 Erkins. Let's again, if we're gonna bring things up, let's talk about it completely. He knew Justin Fields was going to run the ball. That was a blown assignment by the players' communication. They were communicating with each other right before the snap. That's not on the defensive coordinator. He told them to contain. They did not. Justin Fields run for a first down. That's what happens. Sorry, Daniel.
No, you're good. You're good. I agree. And I think it's important to bring those up. Like you said, I think that looking at the talent in the AFC North, I think it's as simple as these dudes like the Pittsburgh Steelers. The reason why they lost to the Ravens was not because of their defense. Cam Hayward made multiple big-time stops. You look at Minka Fitzpatrick. You look at TJ Watt. You look at Alex Highsmith. These are dogs. Go look at the Baltimore Ravens, right? Justin Matabuke, Kyle Hamilton, obviously absolute superstar. But you look at other guys. Ardarius Washington's really stepped up. Roquan Smith, they went out and made a big trade for him. There are guys that they've invested in. The defensive line, they've invested in a plethora of guys at the edge rush position. Odafe Owe, so many guys that they're investing, premium talent. And when you look at the Bengals defense, I think it's as simple, Zim, as you made it. Hey, go to another team, be the GM of the other team and say, hey, look at that Bengals defense. Which guys would you want on your team? And that's not a shot at the talent of the Bengals, but it's looking at what the talent could be. A guy like Mike Hilton, I think, is a perfect example of this. Mike is a superstar at his role. He's a guy where I would 1,000% bring him back, but he is not my starting slot cornerback. He is not going to be my man-to-man cornerback. We've seen him time and time again get burnt. Man-to-man, CD Lamb, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So you have to add the talent. But Malik, you were going to say something?
So, there is if we're going to dive deep into this, because a lot like if you change the head coach or defensive coordinator, who is essentially the head coach of the defense, you're changing everything for the most part, right? You're changing who's under him. One thing that stands out to me is the Bengals secondary. Bengals secondary hasn't been the best, if you will. It hasn't been. And it looks like a completely different secondary versus the one that was under the secondaries coach who left Cincinnati to go to Colorado, right? Right now, the Bengals defensive backs coach, it's kind of like I don't even know what you call it, but it's like it's kind of like a joint position in a lot of ways. Charles Burks, and then you have Jordan Kovacs, who's secondaries and cornerbacks coach. I feel like the results have been who was the Bengals cornerback defensive backs coach? He left. He's now Colorado's defensive coordinator. It's going to come to me, Daniel. I think you're looking it up right now for me, but it's looked a lot different ever since he left. And I think that
Robert Livingston.
There we go. There it is. He's a guy that was well regarded as a corners coach. I remember when he first landed in Cincinnati, people said that was a great hire, and it proved to be very, very good. But I think that I also got to look at some of the things that Lou and his staff have been able to do, right, with the piece that they have. The fact that Marco Wilson is playing serious snaps, right? Playing serious snaps, significant snaps, and is getting positive results. That pass interference earlier today, didn't agree with at all. But Marco Wilson getting results out of. Josh Newton, you're getting results out of. Jordan Battle, yeah. That's the one.
Jordan Battle is a dog to me,
bro.
bro.
I told people when we drafted him from Bama that he was going to be. If I'm gonna ridicule Lou for one thing, it's going to be that. It's going to be taking a while to make the transition from Jordan Battle. But I also had to put myself in his position. Jordan Battle was a starter last year alongside Dax Hill. The safety play was putrid last season. So I think a part of him was scorned by that. I think a part of him was
I never got that. Like when you go to rewatch these games, it's just so bad that you got to think Jordan Battle rookie season was top 3 in PFF rookie safety. And I don't subscribe. I usually just get my data from PFF. I don't really care about the scoring as much, but I'm looking at like missed tackles, how many snaps did they play, different things like that. And if you're at the game, I know somebody here has probably been in the game. You hear all those Jordan Battle hits.
Yes.
He is the biggest hitter on the field.
But the biggest thing last year from the secondary perspective was communication. Yeah. And I think when you bring Von Bell back into the fold, there was a hope that, hey, maybe Von Bell would correct some of the communication issues. So I understood the thought process. Let's pair our former safety, who we got great results and some of our best memories, right? Let's pair him up with a young guy who's coming to Cincinnati for the first time, and let's see if he can get him acclimated to the system. And then maybe bring Jordan Battle slowly along throughout the process. I understood his thought process with it. But the thing is, Von Bell fell off a cliff, and he fell off a cliff bad. That was the thing. I see someone saying about Marrian Hobby needs to go. I'm not there. And let me explain to you why.
Today he had them boys playing like some wild ass dogs.
Let me explain this to you. Like Marrian Hobby, we all know he was defensive coordinator at Clemson. Defensive line coach at Clemson. He also was a part of Saxonville. He was the defensive line coach for that. Do you see how he has Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson playing? How many times those guys have flashed? I think everybody's thought process on Marrian Hobby would be drastically different if Trey Hendrickson had a consistent tag team partner on the other side. I really believe that. I think that the notion that Marrian Hobby literally got the most out of BJ Hill, Larry Ogunjobi, right? He's getting the most out of McKinley Jackson, Chris Jenkins as rookies. They're playing significant minutes. BJ Hill doesn't look like the same right now. And I could tell that injury is really, he seems non-existent out there.
I mean, and with the emergence of the young guys, and you're talking about a full revamp, that's $10 million right there from him. That's $10 million from Hubbard. I will, I think BJ Hill is amazing. He's done amazing things just like Sam has too. The development of McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins is going well. Yeah. And then when you saw Myles Murphy play today, I know that Trey got that one sack, and Myles Murphy would have got it had he not. And I thought a bit of what you're saying goes to my overall point on the defense as a whole. These are all prospects that are now like playing against to somebody in the comments said like, bro, it's just the Browns. Cool. I judge football players based off if the play is there to be made, are you making the play?
Yeah.
There were several times today where I thought they had Dorian Tom. I just call him Dorian. I don't give bums cool nicknames. All right. So Dorian. So Dorian was dead to rights like 3 different times. Osai like didn't make a play. Pratt had a play like early. I'm nitpicking because I evaluate every single play. But I thought that the young dudes, when they had a chance to go make a play, they were making those plays and they didn't look slow today. And I just think moving forward, these are all prospects. I can't really, when you look at all these other teams, like, come on, bro. Like when we play the Steelers and stuff, like, bro, you got Herbert, Highsmith, TJ Watt, the kid they just brought from Green Bay. They got Minka on the back end. They got a first-round corner, Joey Porter. Like these are stacked defenses. And then people are like, yeah, like, the Bengals defense, you guys are trash. I'm like, bro, what did you expect? They drafted 11 draft picks. They moved on from DJ Reader and company, thanks to the front office. When the front office should have said, DJ Reader, let's put him next to Sheldon Rankins because you had enough money to just do that, like just the minimum. They didn't do that. And the expectation levels, I think, are so much higher. That's why I'm very, very hard on the offense. The defense, I knew coming into the season, I don't think there's nobody in this chat that would think that this defense was going to be a top 15, top 10 defense coming into the season after simultaneously losing Jesse Bates, DJ Reader and company and other guys as well too. Like there's nobody that thought that, right? And so now moving forward, I'm like, you got all these prospects, but we're playing all these teams. Bro, the Ravens have 7 All-Pros. They have 10 Pro Bowlers on their team, but yet we're comparing them. And then when the Bengals did give up 40 points one time. The Bills just came off of consecutive games. I don't know if y'all saw Matt Stafford today. He looked really bad, but they won the game. He just put up 42 points on the Bills. Then the Bills played somebody, whoever that game they just played to, and gave up another 40-something points back-to-back weeks. So, like, the expectation levels, I don't think is real for a lot of our fans. That's another part that I'm factoring into this. Like, those are teams that are supposed to have way better defenses. The Bengals didn't give up 44, 50 points to teams like back-to-back. Bro, the Bills just gave up 48 to the Lions. And nobody even – they're just like, yeah, like there's no way you can beat the Bills. Like, bro, you think Joe Burrow not gonna put 50 on the Bills if they get in the playoffs? Like the Bengals offense is better than the Rams. Like, what are we doing?
You know, if we're judging the whole thing as I think that Duke Tobin needs to be a focus. Respectfully, I do, and his team and his drafting. You look at it. I feel like Myles Murphy is getting the opportunities, respectfully. Yeah. I feel like right now he's getting the opportunities. And I'm going to tell you something offline, but I'll tell you, I've watched him and it feels, maybe it's the injury that he dealt with early in the season, but it feels like his decision-making isn't decisive. He kind of plays very stiff and you could tell he's not confident out there. And maybe it's like, hey, I'm not getting all the opportunities and all this kind of stuff. But I think that for a guy that you drafted in the first round, I always knew he was going to obviously be a project being drafted later in the first round. I think that the results have been lackluster. The reason why guys like Cedric Johnson, there's a reason why guys like Joseph Asai are playing, I think, more significant snaps. That's just my thought process. I said this when we were in Florida, Zim, there's no one all amongst the defensive line from an edge standpoint that's stopping me from drafting one of these edge rushers. I sat down with our good friend Parker Blake, one of our TWSN analysts here, and he says, hey, he doesn't love the edge rushers at the top of this draft class, but he loves some of the guys in the back end. I personally like some guys, in this edge class, but I think that if you're going to try to make a concerted effort to get better, this would be the year to do it. Myles Murphy could turn into being a great player. I actually think Myles Murphy would have a lot more success if he was thrown on in the interior of the defensive line in spots. I really think he would have a lot of success there because his size is so menacing, and it's something that you have to account for. His ability to bat balls down, his ability to take up two blockers. I think that's something that he could really excel with. And I look at it, I just don't feel like you have that guy opposite of Trey Hendrickson consistently that can provide pass rush, that has the pass rush repertoire, right? To actually get home consistently. I think Joseph Ossai flashes at times. I think he even showed he was much better on the interior. I think this is going to sound crazy from just limited reps, what I've seen this season. Cedric Johnson, in my opinion, outside of Trey Hendrickson, might be the best pass rusher on the team that has a deeper pass rush set, deeper pass rush bag than all these other guys, in my honest opinion. And to me, that's not something that's not good. Yeah. Let's just call it what it is. It's not good. The potential of Joseph Ossai could see him back here in Cincinnati. That's just my thought process. Danny, what are your thoughts though?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Like, these dudes are like, they flash in certain aspects. Like you said, Ossai looks good, and you can tell the defense, like whether it's Lou or Hobby, they clearly see something with a guy like Ossai on the interior. Myles Murphy, I'm with you. Myles Murphy, when you look at the snaps that he's played and you look at the snaps that other guys in the same draft class, or even last year, guys who just got drafted, what those guys are showing versus what Myles Murphy is showing is, hey, you have to do something to upgrade your room. You go look at guys like the Miami Dolphins, Chop Robinson, right? He is a quote unquote project. That dude has flashed. He has made big time plays in big time moments, and he has at least showed something. Hey, we can develop him, and we're confident he can be our starting pass rusher, and he can make big time plays. Myles Murphy's got 400, 500, 600 snaps under his belt. And at this point, I'm with you. I look at the draft and I say, hey, round 1, round 2, you're definitely adding an edge rusher, and maybe go to free agency. Hell, the Azeez Ojulari, the Chase Young, there is no reason why you can't be trying to get better at that position, because we talked about it. How can you win in the NFL? In my opinion, you win in the trenches. And I've seen teams consistently win when you have a pass rush. Find a way to get a pass rush. I go look at, maybe I'm, diving too deep into that one year where the Kansas City Chiefs, they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And even last year, you look at the teams in the Final Four. It is the Detroit Lions. It is the 49ers. These teams have a dominant pass rush. They have a dominant defensive line. The Bengals don't have that. So how do you get there? And that's why I really look at this defense in general.
There's a question someone asked me. They said, Malik, Travis Waller, appreciate your brother too. He says, what's Malik's top edge this year after we passed on Caesar? You remember that from last year. So I'm about to make a take.
Mm-hmm.
Mykel Williams out of Georgia is this year's Amarius Mims for the edge rusher standpoint.
Mm.
The film has been limited, right? But when you watch the film, it's dominant. It's dominant. Mykel Williams is the best edge rusher in this class, in my opinion.
Mm.
He's injured right now, but this is a guy that I believe if he's healthy, he's going to test like a freak at the combine. I worry if the injury is going to slow him out of his rookie year and if that could drop him. Abdul Carter, for me, is not a guy that I love. I think his size in the AFC North, he could get bullied a lot. He's a very smaller frame guy. He is a guy,
What about
and me and
Pierce?
Parker were talking about this, where, Lou likes to drop his edge rushers back into coverage at points. I feel like Abdul Carter is a guy that could really, really, really excel at that. I think he's a guy.
What about Pierce?
I like Pierce. I don't love Pierce. I love Scorton. I love Nick Scorton. Nick Scorton is a guy you got the production.
I don't love Nick Scorton.
Yeah, I feel that. But we have our team is basically having a scout. We're basically creating a scout team here at TWSN where I'm sending guys out to the Senior Bowl, and going forward, I'll be sending them out to games as our respective scout team. And we're going to be coming out with this whole new project here at TWSN where guys are going to be essentially acting as scouts on behalf of us, though. And, you know, for me, one thing we look at is we don't always look at who we love. We look at how the Bengals have a specific way of drafting guys, right? Like we always know their tackles. They like their tackles to be 6'7", 6'8", 330. Their edge rushers, the Bengals routinely like to draft guys, right, who are 6'5", 6'6", that Michael Johnson mold, the Marcus Hunt mold, the Will Clark mold. That has been their MO. Respectfully, it has not worked out. that has not been something that has been easy for them to replicate. It's the reason why I think that they found themselves drafting a Myles Murphy. When the production, the guys they've gotten production out of have been a little smaller in size and stature. Guys like Carl Lawson, who albeit didn't have huge sack numbers, but he was able to provide pressure. Trey Hendrickson is he's a smaller edge typically from what the Bengals typically go for. He's like 6'4". He leans on 6'4". He's much more like 6'3.5".
See, I think the Bengals, what they should do moving forward, and I'm about a group by committee approach. So Trey Hendrickson, I asked Daniel that question earlier. I could see a world where he says, well, he's 31 years old coming up. I could see a world where the Bengals say, no, we're not extending you 2-3 years. There's probably an NFC team that would probably give you maybe a late first or a high second. And I think I would take it. And I know that that's going to be a controversial take, but I just don't see him playing on the last year of that deal. Now, what the Bengals should do is give him like a 1 or 2 year extension. And if he takes that, then I would give him to him. But my committee by approach theory will be a bunch of Myles Murphys, guys that can support in the run game, but more developed as pass rushers. So I'm looking for more of those guys. Like, remember when we played the 2021 Titans? When they got off the bus, they're the biggest guys in the world. They're coming to kill your quarterback, and they're ferocious. And all of them look like Myles Murphy, and they all can play the run. Trey Hendrickson leads our team with over 20-something missed. He has more missed tackles on our team than anybody in on our team. Because most teams run directly at him. I think that if you look at the Steelers, the Ravens, teams like that, what they do first and foremost is eliminate you running the football. And once you can't run the football on third down in all these predictable scenarios, it always works in their favor. And so you might not have like the most sacks in the world, or you could have an approach like the Broncos that we're going to see next week, where they got all these high motor young guys or whatever, and they lead the league in sacks. Both of the scenarios that I'm saying is just throwing young rotation at the position, but everybody can play the run. To me, I think that that's a fast way to streamline Bengals success. I think that teams might put up a good amount of yards on them, but you probably aren't scoring that much because you're not running over 100 yards in any of those games. And to me, that's the quickest formula. You might not get this crazy pass rush that you want, but you got wild, young, 21, 22-year-old dogs with the craziest motor that are just running at you. And that's what I would do. The whole all season would be doing that. And if there's like a 24-year-old guy that maybe you want to take a chance on in free agency that you just throw like $3-4 million at, if Osai comes back and doesn't listen to David Mulligetta and you want to take another chance at him, I'm not opposed to it. But like bigger, I want to be the biggest team getting off the bus. Amarius Mims, second round, I'm coming back with Ratledge from Georgia. I'm putting them next to Amarius Mims, and we're going to run the football, and we're going to punch you in your mouth. And that's just what it is. And that would be the only offensive player that I would get. Maybe if Fanning was around in the third, I can go and score 45 points a game as well, too. But I'm going all defense in this draft, and it's all predicated on signing T. Higgins.
And listen, so I love that we're talking about this right now. You know, so just so y'all know, my team is really, really big into the draft, into the offseason. Like, this is what we live for. We've already started our scouting process. Daniel has so many scouting reports already stacked up, but I'm also looking at free agency. I think free agency is a spot where you, for the now, where you can hope to get some immediate, help. Because like you have to think about it from this perspective. Trey Hendrickson's on a contract for another year. Okay, are you going to give him more money? You're going to give him more security, or are you moving off of him? I don't think the Bengals will move off of Trey Hendrickson this offseason, but that doesn't mean you won't deal with a disgruntled Trey Hendrickson to some degree, right? So you have to plan for life without him in the future, right? But before we can even get there, you have to go after guys that you think could play significant snaps, significant minutes, and really have, good production for you. For me, there's going to be some guys the Bengals could potentially go after and, try and get something out of. Like for me, the Cleveland Farrell fit is always one that makes sense. It's always a position that makes sense, a guy that makes sense for a lot of reasons. And I think, obviously the Marrian Hobby connection is so obvious there. But then you look at some other guys that are there, some guys the Bengals have went after in years past, right? Guys like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Dante Fowler, right? You have the Chase Young, who's going to be a free agent. Hassan Reddick is a guy that needs to reestablish his value in the league, right? Ideally, the Bengals' MO this offseason when it comes to fixing the defensive line or the edge rusher position, because their primary focus for the defensive line should be, can we get help opposite of Trey Hendrickson? You want guys that have production or guys that you feel like maybe that they weren't that have been used properly. You want guys that have proven that they could do it or a flash in the league. That's one thing I will say that in some spots they've been good at, assessing talent and finding talent, from the Cheetah Bay Awuzies, the Eli Apples, the Larry Okunjobis. Hell, what's the BJ Hill? They're able to find these guys that can really, they can get sort of try and get the most out of. So for me, when I'm looking at this upcoming free agency class, I'm looking at guys that have the production. I'm looking at guys that need to reestablish themselves. They kept going after Roy Robertson Harris. He's a guy that, didn't opt to sign with them. Did well as well when he went to Jacksonville or wherever he went. I think at this point, you have to put yourself in the Bengals front office shoes. There are going to be some obvious ways to fix this defensive line. You still have to figure out what you want to do with some of the pieces that are either aging, contracts are coming up. But for me, hear me out. There's no piece on the defensive line, specifically speaking, the edge, that's stopping me from drafting a guy for the future. I don't give a damn how overloaded it makes us. I'm leaving no stone unturned. But the biggest thing is, how are they going to approach this offseason from a front office perspective? I think we can all agree that something needs to change and something big needs to change in that regard. What does that look like, though, for them? Because ideally, I think they need a new voice, new approach, need someone in there that is going to really try to get the best out of this roster. To me, I feel like there's a blind loyalty from some guys when the production hasn't met what you're asking for, so to speak. So it's going to be very, very interesting offseason. Sam, what are your thoughts, though, in terms of, obviously the Bengals are still fighting for playoffs right now. They're still in the hunt. They got a huge game against the Denver Broncos coming up next week. But as we start to look ahead, not just to that game, but just to the future, I feel like this defense isn't far off. And we keep talking about it. I feel like they are an opposite edge rusher of Trey Hendrickson from really putting together a stout unit. One thing that I loved from this game today, Daniel, Zim, and everyone watching, we appreciate y'all. And while you're here, do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Who Dey MD, I love that. Sign Josh Sweat. I like that. I like that idea. But the one thing that I love to see from the secondary today, guys were fighting for the ball. Guys were making a concerted effort to attack the ball in the air. They were aggressive. They were literally fighting each other, albeit it was null and void because it was a pass interference. But these guys were going after it. They were ball hawks. And it's something that we saw in the Tennessee game. Listen, you put one game, a good game under you, or two good games under you, it starts to look a little different. And I think that what you've seen from Cam Taylor-Britt, Geno Stone, Jordan Battle, Josh Newton is right now, you see guys that are hungry. You see guys that are playing with confidence. You see guys that are playing loose. That's just my thought process. And what are your thoughts, though?
You initially asked me about like the upcoming game. I think Bo Nix is probably going to have more success than DTR because he's a better quarterback. I think that the Bengals defense will give the offense some opportunities, and it's up to the offense that's a top 3 offense to take advantage of those opportunities that are given. And if they don't, I don't want to come back here and the Bengals lose 20-16 and we're talking about the defense. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I need the offense to drop 30 something just because that's who that's what they are. That's how the Bengals are constructed. But, you know, I don't know. Moving forward, I'm evaluating as I go. But like I said, I just want to get younger. And I want it to be guys up front that can all play against the run. One thing that's lost in the sauce is overall, I know he had the big 66-yard run, but it is what it is. Jerome Ford had 132 total yards in this game and a touchdown, and he looked pretty damn good. If the game was close enough, he probably could have got for more, but they were forced to pass. And so there's some things that I think they need to tighten up. I think that he's I have him on the bench in my fantasy football. I'm very mad I didn't play him because I actually played somebody that didn't do anything in the playoffs of my fantasy football. But there are different things that I think that they need to clean up. But guys like Jordan Battles of the world, those are the guys that I want to see. Like, I know that maybe from a communication standpoint and all these different things, like, I don't know. I just know when I see him,
it's improved for sure.
He's electric, bro. Like, that's a dude that has the makings of being a really good player in this league. And you know it because just from watching, like, you could watch tape and I watch games and I'll say, damn, why did Geno Stone take that angle? Or like, why did, you know, like different things like that. But there are very few playmakers on our team. You got Mike Hilton, Trey Hendrickson, and Battle. And Cam Taylor-Britt, I will put in there because Cam Taylor-Britt, he can get cooked, whatever. Geno Stone doesn't drop picks either. That's another thing. Is I like he catches it. But Battle, he has that thing that you're looking for. Like if you go watch a Derwin James game or you go look at like some of the bigger hitters, like some of the bigger box safeties, whatever. And he had a run stop early in this game. I can't wait to go watch that again. The defender normally might do like a little hezzy. Guy kind of outruns it. He could step to the Jordan Battle took his legs out like it was like a 2-yard loss or whatever. I thought that was like that's a crazy play to make. It doesn't seem like it, but that's a crazy play.
That's literally all he did at Alabama. That's all he did at Alabama. He's playing loose, playing free. When he knows the system, he knows the system, and that's what you want. I'm going to make a take right now, Zim. I think the biggest focus to me in the offseason needs to be the edge position in terms of like the defensive line. That's for me. I like what I've seen, the early returns on McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins. And, you know, if there's one guy that's intriguing to me, that's a free agent. And again, this is just me spewing. Bobby Brown from the Rams. That's a guy that I'm really interested in potentially if you're going to add. Because you got to replace, if you're not bringing BJ Hill back, you got to replace that veteran presence with someone. Right. And Bobby Brown's only 24 years old, but you know, I think he's a guy that has made a lot of good football plays. But I say the edge position is so important to me because I don't want to stunt the growth of McKinley Jackson or Chris Jenkins. I'll be honest with you. I think those two are going to be very good.
Hey, McKinley Jackson, for a guy to be that big, he sure does move quick. He gets, when he sheds blocks, he moves off of them quick.
Did you see how smooth and how free his sack was on DTR? It was immediately as soon as the snap of the ball, he sheds his block and he is instantly at his feet.
Right. The Chris Jenkins second sack was DTR running around doing stupid stuff where he should have just threw it away. But Chris Jenkins was on his ass. And it was never a moment where he looked slow. Like I watched a bunch of games. Like, you know, we all had the opportunity to watch Ravens, Steelers, and Chiefs and whatever. And I'm watching, like, I urge all Bengals fans, like, if you think our defense is really bad and stuff, I understand that. I'm not here to disagree with, you know, I'm not saying that the defense is good. Like, I think that they're average at best. Today I thought they were phenomenal against a pedestrian offense. But when you go to look at some of those teams like making plays, I thought that the Steelers with their banged up secondary, like in that game, it put the emphasis on how slow other pieces around him, like the spine of the defense versus the secondary. So when I'm talking the spine, I'm talking about what you got up front and then the linebackers behind it. There have been games this season where I thought Pratt looked really slow.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, even the Steelers, the spine of their defense was compromised because the secondary, Joey Porter goes out. They already didn't have the other corner out. I don't really know all of their play. Like, all of it, they had another safety that went out too. And so then the spine was compromised. And so, like, you had the things that Queen does really well. They then forced him to come in run support instead of, like, getting sideline to sideline and different things like that. If the Bengals can shore up the spine and add, like, another linebacker that can move, I think I would like that. That could be a middle of the round pick or whatever. And because I think Pratt, he'll probably be on the roster next year along with Logan Wilson again, but they're going to have to introduce another linebacker. And I think ADG will be gone, but I think there has to be like Peyton Wilson. That's one of my favorite linebackers from like that's on the Steelers now.
Yep.
If you watch him, he's very quick and instinctive. Is that meta? I need to see more plays from him. I'm not sure. But I'm going to go against what you were saying about the edge has been the number one. This is a hot take, and you probably don't like this guy that much, but I think he has the mold. We're going to see Pat Surtain next week. And watch what he does to Jamar Chase. It's going to make Joe very hesitant to throw to Jamar Chase. You might be at home like, why don't you just throw to Jamar Chase? You don't play with Pat Surtain like that. As good as Jamar is, you take your chances, but you scheme up plays for Jamar Chase. You don't throw out routes to Pat Surtain. There's a guy that I like, and a lot of people don't like him, and that's Will Johnson.
I love him.
All right.
Daniel doesn't like him. Okay. But I love him.
And the reason why, if you look at his mold, the swag, all these different things, and you remember, I don't have a favorite college football team, whatever like that, so I don't care that he goes to Michigan or anything like that. If you look at the Bengals defense right now, they now have a veteran secondary, because now you have Dax Hill, you have Juan Drago, and then now you're going to be having Fig Newton still out there, and you're going to have maybe Marco Wilson, who I think can be a part of this thing too, and you got Ivy. If they had, and I think Mike Hilton will probably be gone. I would bring him back, but I don't think he, like Daniel said, it's just one role. I think you could get Dax Hill or DJ Turner to do what Mike Hilton's doing currently right now in that slot role and do those blitzes and stuff, and that will be your slot corner because they can cover, they're fast and everything like that. If the Bengals had a shutdown corner on the outside, I think you would get a lot of coverage sacks with the formula that I'm saying up front. I watch a lot of teams that take away one whole side of the field, and they don't have the best pass rushers. But because the quarterback is hesitant to let that ball go that extra second or so, I think could go a long way. Now, I would supplement and add, the interior defense early in the draft. And I would add an edge rusher before rounds 4 or 5, like in that sweet spot. But my first round pick, we're going to get into the film. So check with TWSN. You're going to have to show me another corner that has that body mode, that speed. When he goes to the combine, he's going to run a 4.3.
Yeah.
When you show me somebody like that, and I can show you how you can make a lot of plays up front by shutting down one half of the field,
he'll be top 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll be top 10. Yeah. That's my only pushback.
All right. So give me my interior defensive guy up front. Give me the kid Nolan. Give me Nolan from Mississippi.
I like Nolan.
He's a beast.
But for me, Mikael Williams.
Okay.
Man,
we're gonna have to battle it out. We got us a Brock Bowers versus
oh man.
Who's your guy?
It wasn't even one guy. It was just more so
Verse.
I was like Verse or Mims. That's what it was.
Okay. So we got a Bowers verse situation here because I'm gonna go Nolan.
I listen. I appreciate that too. I can appreciate, but for me, it's just like I think McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins are going to continue to flash, and I think they're the one thing I like about them is they're very athletic. They're very athletic for their size, and they cover up a lot of ground.
I want a nasty rotation. This season taught me about. Okay, yeah, I had Shelton Rankins and I had one guy. I keep on saying it. If the Bengals would have just did Reader and Rankins, I think you probably win one more game at least. Like maybe you don't lose week 1. That one little bit, I think you might win 2 more games, honestly. But that combination of those two, I want to throw another dog into the equation of what you're saying, and it have 3 guys under contract for the next 3 years that I'm not paying all this extra money for, and then I can go get my Hufanga in free agency or my Javon Holland. I want to get another safety on the back end that's a veteran. We got time to get into it. I have a plan. I've been thinking about this, so I'm very interested to see all the scouting stuff. And then we could go, we could go player for player. I do a thing in an app called Playback where we actually break down film and show people like different things on video too. So we're going to be showing a lot of these prospects coming up, and I appreciate. I don't watch college football every week, but I love the evaluation of players going into it into the season.
So the hot take that I have is, people don't want to talk about it. Like, their record is obviously the Bengals are what, 6-8, 7-8 now. Not bad. But here again, part of what I do is I judge everything big picture wise. Week 1 was on the offense. People don't talk about that enough. Week 1, where the Bengals lost to the Patriots, was on the offense. The offense put up 10 points.
Had the ball with 1:36. The defense forced the 3 and out, gave the offense the ball back with 1:30.
They win that game. That's an extra victory. That's the defense held the New England Patriots to 16 points. To 16 points. Put that into perspective. So again, what I do is I judge everything from big picture. So for me, it's like, it's easy to see how the defense started breaking down. Obviously, after losing Dax Hill for the season, Cam Simple goes out and nothing was really done to help those things. That's why I can judge it from a big picture, because if they win that game, they're now looking at 8 wins, right? And now the defense still fell apart. But I think as the front office needs to approach this from the perspective that what you do to help give this roster the best chance to win doesn't just start and end in the offseason. I loved what the announcer said today was. I don't know exactly what he said, but he's who he was. But he said, I think that the front office realizes that they didn't put this coaching staff. No, it wasn't the announcer. It was Jordan Schultz. He said the Bengals front office realizes that they didn't put this coaching staff in the best position to succeed going into the season. With the Trey Hendrickson deal, with the Jamar Chase deal.
Yes.
I think that I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that everyone is realizing that now. You don't lose your number 1 corner. And make no mistake about it, Dax Hill was the number 1 corner. You don't lose your number 1 corner. You don't lose one of your top rotational pieces in the edge and not do anything. That's not how functioning teams work. You don't go out there and tell Diana Rossini, we're going to try to do all these moves and at the trade deadline, and then all you do is bring in a running back for a 7th round pick. That's not what winning organizations do that take this thing serious. So when we come on here and we criticize and we talk about things, there's a reason why things have ended the way that they are. And maybe the front office put that in Duke Tobin's hand and say, hey, Duke, you make the calls. You get guys in here. And maybe Duke didn't do his part. But listen, the Bengals have a big game against the Broncos coming up. It's a huge game against the Broncos coming up. All you got to do is just look ahead to that. Control what you can control. Try to cut your own grass, as I always say. Travis Wallace says, curious on your gents' thoughts on the safety class, like Starks, and Manwari, Watts, or I don't know how to pronounce the name. But I'll say this. I've been a huge Malachi Starks fan for the last 2 seasons. He's a guy that I really, really like. I know I say, you draft best player available. Hands down, you do. But here's the question you have to ask yourself, and you got to put yourself in the front office shoes. Has what Geno Stone has, I already know where Zim is right now with this, but has Geno Stone showed you enough to push that to the side? Because he ain't replacing Jordan Battle, right? So like, has Geno Stone showed you enough to be like, yeah, we feel good about running it back?
From my perspective or the Bengals front office perspective?
Put yourself in the Bengals front office.
He's shown me enough because I've already paid him. He's on the hook for guaranteed money. He's making plays, and he's been one of the higher graded players down the stretch. I would chalk it up to early season woes, learning the complicated defense of Lou Anarumo.
Yeah. Daniel, you?
Yeah, I think
Me.
Hold on.
Let me say this. If it were me, I would add another safety to the whole equation. Because remember, I'm gonna move on from Sam Hubbard, BJ Hill. I'm about to go get 40-50 million like off of Kappa, BJ Hill, Zach Moss.
Yeah.
All them dudes can go. I can get 40-50 mil right there. Just go. Safety is a position that isn't high yielding in money. So go get me a Hufanga. That's a guy from the 49ers. You're probably going to get at a discount because he came off the torn ACL. He's a dog.
Yeah.
Put him out there. I have a lot more 3 safety looks. He can also blitz as well too. That's what I would do. I know the Bengals probably aren't going to do it. They're going to look at it like we're paying 2 safeties. We probably go to the draft, and I hear Malachi Starks. I just can't draft a safety that early with the trenches in the condition that it's in right now. Like I love the McKinley and I love Chris Jenkins. It's not enough though. I'm looking at our division, and you look at those Pro Bowlers. You know what I'm saying? It's just, bro, these dudes are rotating like 9-10 people when we play like the Steelers. Eagles. You got to be able to compete with the big dogs if you want to win in this division.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I look at these safeties, I'm looking at free agency, if anything. It's hard for me to pass up on the names like the Holland and these other guys in hopes that Malachi Starks will be there. So that's how I look at it, because Malachi Starks, if you go into the draft and saying, hey, we're going to draft him, you're drafting him to be your starting safety. And I am not heading into the draft begging for him. And when you look at these other guys are fine. Like I like Watts. He's a Notre Dame guy. He's super consistent. I would be looking 2nd or 3rd round. Me personally, Eamon Wari, I'm not a huge fan of. He's that, the mold of the big safety, the guy that's, hard hitting. He makes flashy plays, but for me, I just don't really see where he fits in, especially he's not a 1st-round guy, in my opinion. I see too many issues with him. Man-to-man coverage in the slot. Takes poor angles. He's a flashy player, but he's going to need a lot of development. So for me, I really think it would be a major miss for the Bengals not to focus on the trenches in the first 2 rounds of the draft. When we talk about round 3 and 4 and 5, it's whatever. You're going best player available. But first 2 rounds, I think you really have to focus on the trenches.
Yeah. Listen, we want to thank you all so much for joining us for another recap show presented by the Right Way Sports Network. Me and Zim, I'm pretty sure we're going to be back live again Saturday after the game, probably, because the Bengals play against the Broncos.
What time is that game?
You know what? I don't know. I have no idea. But I will tell you this. Obviously,
it's a big game.
With it being, it's a huge game. With it being Christmas. What'd you say? 4. All right. It's a 4 p.m. game. So we'll definitely be going live. With it being a Christmas this week, we won't be doing State of the Jungle on Wednesday. I'll be doing my morning show on Tuesday. So no morning show tomorrow, but we'll be back live with our morning show on Tuesday to break through all things NFL and get us all geared up for things. Listen, we hope that y'all have a great Christmas. We hope that you guys have a great Christmas with your family. Happy holidays to you. I'm feeling a little bit refreshed, fresh off of Florida. Zim was
in Houston.
He was in Houston, so we appreciate y'all so much. We're sorry we couldn't come to you guys this past week. And, I got a lot of DMs about that and all that good stuff, but we appreciate you. We hope that you all have a happy holidays. Make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content. Jacqueline Hyde is asking for me to be on Cincinnati sometime soon.
Let's go.
I'm sure we could definitely make that happen. But until next time, as always, who day?
All they ever do is win, so kick that, relax, the TWSN.